Hey guys, I'm back with another Batmobile, and this time we're taking a look at the McFarlane Toys Batmobile from the movies Batman v Superman and Justice League. This is the crowdfunded set, specifically the third tier set, which has a few extra features. The McFarlane Crowdfund, it's similar to the Hasbro HasLab campaigns where if they get a certain number of fans and collectors to commit to purchasing, the collectible will then go into production. And like HasLab, there are multiple tiers, and each one has additional incentives to get collectors to back the campaign. There were a total of 5 tiers with this campaign, and all I really wanted was the Batmobile, but I thought it would be cool to have what was in level 3. I think it's nice to have a Batman figure with the McFarlane Batmobiles, plus I really wanted the Bat Signal. The Batman figure actually looks pretty cool to me. Just looking at the artwork on the back here, it kind of reminds me of the Arkham Knight Batman. So yeah, let's get everything out of the boxes and take a closer look. Other than the collector's cards, this is everything that you get with the third tier. Now, I've already assembled a couple of the pieces like the bat signal, and I added the fins to the back of the Batmobile. But let's take a quick look at the figure here. I have to say, I'm really surprised by how cool this Batman figure looks. That tactical design, it looks better than what I remembered from the movie. The articulation is pretty standard, I think, for McFarlane. I've mentioned this before, but I don't really collect McFarlane figures, but this one has some really great detail, and I'm happy to have it with the Batmobile. You get a figure stand, and there are no other accessories, but come on, the Batmobile is the actual accessory, right? And it has a nice cloth cape, so it will sit in the Batmobile without any problem. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but the material is really cool. It has like this texture to it. So yeah, let's set this aside, because you also get the weapons here to transform it into the Justice League version of the Batmobile. You got the missiles for the front end, and you have these 2 side turrets. Some nice sculpting detail on that there. And I've already assembled it, but the canopy was in 2 pieces. You had to apply this cannon at the top. And the cannon has a little bit of articulation. Some nice sculpting in there. Now, I am a sucker for a good bat signal. I don't have many in my Batmobile display, but this one is a great addition. It has some nice detail on the base with these bat gargoyles. And it's got some nice paint apps on the side. The signal itself pivots, and there's a switch on the back. So the bat signal lights up. I know McFarlane released a bat signal with the movie figure set, but I didn't get that one, and I thought it would be nice to have this one to display with this Batmobile. So let's set the bat signal aside and talk about the Batmobile. Like most McFarlane Batmobiles, it's entirely made of plastic, and you can see the fins on the back are a very thin plastic. Now, this was an issue I had with the McFarlane '89 Batmobile. Some of the parts of the plastic construction are so delicate that I feel like I could easily break something if I move it. But the sculpt is pretty sharp throughout. It's not completely screen accurate, but McFarlane did a decent job with the armored aesthetic, from the chunky front plating to the exposed mechanical details on the side and on the back. There's some subtle weathering on the fins here, and you get that on the front hood, and it sort of helps to, sell this idea that the Batmobile has seen some combat. There are also some paint apps for the headlights. There aren't many features, but obviously the wheels roll. And there are some other moving parts like the turret on the front. It swivels a little bit. And there's a button on the top which makes the canopy pop open. The canopy is definitely not screen accurate. They simplified it and made the canopy one piece. And there's some detail inside the cockpit. It's again a one-seater, which is also not accurate, but pretty consistent for what I've seen with McFarlane Batmobiles. There are also a few details on the dashboard in addition to the steering wheel. And the Batman figure, it sits without any problem, and you can even position him to hold the steering wheel. Looks pretty cool. Okay, so let's talk about the level 2 features that transforms this into the militarized Justice League Batmobile. The canopy is the main problem. It's a bit of a pain to replace, and I'm not sure if it was the best design choice. So what you do is you open up the canopy here, and you can see there are 2 little ports where the pegs of the canopy fit in. And you pull the canopy up, and as you can see, it is not easy to detach, in part because of the way that it's designed, and also because the plastic is so thin that I feel like I'm going to break it as I try to pull it off. You can see the 2 pegs there. And the best way I've found to connect this is to push this lever down and then close the lid on the front. Then you go back and apply pressure to make sure that the pegs are connected. Now, if I'm missing something here, or if anybody knows of a better way of doing this, please let me know in the comments. Now, by contrast, the missile turret on the front is very easy to replace. You just take the original piece here, and it pops right out easily. And then the missile turret plugs in with no problem. And it still rotates and has some articulation. Now, the 2 side turrets took me a moment to figure out because the directions don't really explain this, but you can see there are these circular magnets in there, and this part here on the body is magnetized, so they just sit right on top. They're not very secure, and you got to get them in just the right spot, or the magnets will make them kind of flip around a little bit. And I guess that means you can still move them and they have a little bit of articulation. But I guess it looks pretty cool, right? I love the BVS Batmobile. I specifically love this version of the Batmobile from the first Suicide Squad movie. But this Justice League version is not bad. It's not my favorite. In fact, I only have one other Snyderverse Justice League Batmobile in my collection. In closing, this may not be a Batmobile set for everyone, but I am glad to have it in my collection. Mostly because it came with the Bat Signal, and I surprisingly really like the Batman figure. I think it's awesome that McFarlane Toys has released so many Batmobiles, but there's a reason why the only other McFarlane Batmobile that I own is the 89. Some of the quality issues with the design and the construction of this Batmobile, it detracts a little bit from the collector's value, I think. Now, that's not so much a complaint, because I do realize what I'm getting with the McFarlane line. I wouldn't have backed this crowdfund if I didn't think this was a good opportunity. I do think that this Batmobile, especially with the Batman figure and the Bat Signal, will make for a great display piece in my collection. You guys let me know what you think about this one. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you taking the time to like and subscribe. So, we've been looking at the McFarlane Toys crowdfunded Tier 3 Batmobile set from the movies Batman v Superman and Justice League. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.